Lobbying is any action that's designed to influence the decisions of government. It could be about regulation, taxation, government contracts, government policy, but it's basically anything that's designed to influence government decisions. There is an important distinction in terms of regulation. We're looking to regulate just the commercial lobbying industry, and that can be people working in charities, or people working in private sector, or people working in trade unions, but they crucially have to be paid. If you are voluntarily, if you're writing to your MP, there's no way you should be regulated. If you are a small charitable group that doesn't get paid to lobby over a certain issue, or if you're opposing a particular development in your community, these people shouldn't be captured. This is not big stuff. It's the commercial lobbying industry, this £2 billion industry that we think needs regulation. It's difficult to tell how much policy is actually influenced by lobbyists. What we do know is that it's a large and growing industry. It's worth about £2 billion in the UK, and it comes only after Washington and Brussels in size. So there is this enormous machine that is intent on influencing government decisions. We know, for example, that there was an enormous lobbying machine by private healthcare, so private insurance companies and private hospital groups and stuff, for the current NHS reforms. But what we can't see in this country, and what we have no public scrutiny of, is who's lobbying whom and what they're actually discussing. They have regulations in the States where you can actually see the nature of the lobbying that's happening, but in this country we have no public scrutiny of lobbying whatsoever, so it's very difficult to tell. We know it's going on, we can see the size of it, we can see the amount of people employed in it, but we can't actually get to grips with what specifically they're lobbying for. I think the problem is actually about the secrecy. When something is secret, it naturally feels dubious or dodgy, you know, that there's something underhand going on, that there are deals being made behind closed doors, and are those deals being made in the public interest, and we don't know, and it's this not knowing that makes people think that something dodgy is going on. If it was above board, if it was transparent, and we can have a public debate about what this lobbying was actually doing, I think there wouldn't be this negative impression. So I actually don't think it's anything for the lobbying industry to fear. I think it should be pushing for proper, robust transparency. And then we get rid of a lot of these scandals. Yeah, we're campaigning for proper compulsory transparency regulations for lobbyists. It's a very, very simple thing. It's a register. It's a list, effectively. You say who you are, who you're lobbying for, what you're lobbying on, whom you're lobbying in government, and how much money you're spending on it. You do that every quarter, and it's a very, very straightforward list. The current system of self-regulation was described recently by a select committee of MPs who did a 18-month, 2-year inquiry into lobbying. They described self-regulation as little better than the emperor's new clothes. Self-regulation is no regulation, really. It puts lobbyists in a very difficult position. If there is a breach, say that, I don't know, a lobbying firm doesn't register a client, or it employs an MP, or does something against the lobbyist code, you're asking peers, competitors effectively, who run this system of self-regulation, to make judgments about their commercial rivals. And it's an impossible situation. It has to be an external person who says, you've breached the rules, or, you know, this isn't right. You cannot have people, competitors, judging each other and hoping for a successful system. Plus, you know, it's underfunded, there's nobody monitoring the system of self-regulation. So if under self-regulation they have to just say who they are and who they're lobbying for, so who their clients are. If you have a client that is maybe a little bit shy about being, you know, they don't want their lobbying out in the public, there's nothing to stop a company from not declaring that client. It's only if a journalist gets hold of it, or, you know, there's nobody monitoring the system. So without effective monitoring, it's a dud system. And actually, self-regulation has been designed as a way to stave off regulation. If you look at the history of self-regulation, every time there's a scandal, or every time there's an inquiry by Parliament, they beef up the self-regulatory system. They say, oh no, hang on, no, that wasn't working, but we're going to do something else now. So they create a new body to oversee self-regulation, and the Public Relations Consultants Association was created because of that, because there was a scandal. The Association of Professional Political Consultants was created because there was scandal and parliamentary attention. And we've had another one created recently, which is called the UK Public Affairs Council. It's very difficult to keep up with all the self-regulated bodies, but it's because they said, oh no, that self-regulation wasn't working, we'll have another. Well, we'll do it under this UK Public Affairs Council, and that'll be self-regulation, and that'll work. And every time we have these kind of inquiries, or there's a head of steam around calls for regulation of lobbyists, they sort of refresh the system of self-regulation, and it's never going to work. Regulation, yeah. I mean, there's no way that you can have a system that is run by lobbyists, funded by lobbyists, where lobbyists are sitting in judgment of other lobbyists. That system can't work. You need an external, independent body to be able to sit there and say, and it needs to be independent of government and independent of the industry, and it needs to be able to sit there and hold this register, and it needs to have sufficient funds to be able to investigate whether the information there is correct, and if it needs to be given sufficient power to say if somebody has breached the rules, then they need to have the power to be able to either fine them or pursue other sanctions. So it's a very, very simple system, statutory regulation. They have a system in the States, they have a system in Canada, a very good one there. They have a partial system in Brussels. There is a trend around the world towards lobbying transparency regulations, and the fact that we have such a sophisticated public relations and lobbying industry in the UK, and such a big lobbying industry here, it's kind of incredible that it's not regulated in any way, given the effect that it has on public policy.